There is a sentence, a specific arrangement of words that once heard can never be unheard. It does not echo in the room, but in the architecture of a woman's mind, a seismic tremor that fractures the very foundation of what she believed was real. This is not about shouted insults or clumsy rejections. This is about the quiet, surgical strike, the phrase delivered with a calm that is more terrifying than any rage. It is the key that turns a lock she never knew existed, opening a door to a cold and terrifying truth. She is in a room she thought was safe. Perhaps it is her own living room, the lamplight casting a warm, familiar glow on the books she's read and the photographs she's taken. Or maybe it's a restaurant, the murmur of other conversations, a soft blanket of normalcy. He is there, across from her, the man. His face is known to her, a landscape she has mapped with her trust. He might be a lover of years, his hands familiar on her skin. He might be a husband, the father of her children, his presence as constant as her own heartbeat. Or he could be a new presence, one she was just beginning to believe in, to let past the carefully maintained walls. The conversation is ordinary, a meandering stream of shared plans, minor grievances, the quiet hum of a connection she believes is mutual. She feels, in this moment, seen, understood. She is relaxing into the comfort of it, a cat stretching in a sunbeam. This is the setting of the trap. This is when the foundation is most vulnerable. The shift is almost imperceptible. It's not in his voice, which remains level, conversational. It's in the air between them, a subtle drop in pressure, like the moment before a storm breaks. He might take a sip of his drink, his eyes meeting hers over the rim of the glass. And then he says it. The words, they are never what you would expect. They are not "I don't love you" or "it's over." Those are bludgeons. They cause a different kind of pain, a clean break. No, the words that truly terrify are the ones that reframe reality itself. They are the quiet, almost clinical observations that reveal a terrifying truth. The person she thought she knew is a carefully constructed facade, and the man beneath is a stranger who has been observing her, studying her, all this time. For one woman, the words were, "You're so much easier to manage when you're tired." They were spoken by her husband of a decade as she slumped over her coffee after a sleepless night with their newborn. The sentence hung in the air, not as a criticism, but as a statement of fact, a piece of operational data. In that single, chilling phrase, every past kindness, in taking the baby so she could rest, in suggesting she skip her morning run, in bringing her a sedative-laced tea, transformed from acts of love into acts of control. The fatigue she wore as a badge of maternal devotion was, in his eyes, a tactical advantage. The warmth of their home suddenly felt like the controlled climate of a laboratory. She was not a partner. She was a subject, an organism whose resistance was lower under specific conditions, and he was the scientist who knew how to engineer those conditions. The love she felt, the shared struggles, the future they were building, it all crumbled into dust, revealing the cold, sterile floor of a cage she never knew she was in. For another, it happened in the glow of a television screen during a mundane documentary about deep-sea creatures. He pointed at a bizarre, luminous fish and said, with a soft, almost affectionate laugh, "That's how I think of your anxiety. This little, fragile, glowing thing that follows you around in the dark. It's actually quite beautiful, in its way." The horror was not in the comparison, but in the tone, the possessive, curator's appreciation. He wasn't seeing her struggle. He was admiring its aesthetic. Her pain, her internal chaos, was not a problem to be solved, but a peculiar feature that he found intriguing. It was a part of her exhibit in the museum of his life. In that moment, she realized he had never wanted to help her conquer her anxiety. He enjoyed it. He needed it. It was the very thing that made her interesting to him, that kept her dependent, that ensured she would never feel strong enough to leave the man who found her suffering so beautiful. The words are a key, and they open a door not to a new room, but to the backstage of her own life. The set pieces are revealed as painted plywood. The props are cheap plastic. The script in her hands is different from the one in his. She thought she was co-writing a life. He was conducting a long-term experiment. This is the first and most profound layer of the terror. It is the terror of ontological shock. The ground beneath her feet was not ground at all, but a stage he built, and he has just handed her the blueprints with a gentle, condescending smile. She must now question every memory, every tender moment, every argument. Was that a genuine expression of emotion? Or was it a data point? Was that a compromise? Or was it a variable being adjusted? The past becomes a crime scene, and she is the detective sifting through the ashes for clues she missed, for the telltale signs of the architect. And then comes the second wave of dread, the realization of what he is. If he is capable of this level of sustained, performative intimacy, what else is he capable of? The mind, once it has accepted this new, horrifying reality, begins to project forward. It runs simulations. If he can pretend to love, What can he pretend? If he can see her deepest vulnerabilities as tools or curiosities, where does his morality truly lie? The future, which once stretched out like a safe, familiar road, now vanishes into a fog of terrifying possibilities. Every plan, every shared dream is now a potential trapdoor. The vacation they booked could be an isolation tactic. The house they want to buy could be a more effective prison. The child they speak of having could be the ultimate hostage. The terror is no longer about what he said, but about the infinite, horrifying things he has not yet done, but now, clearly, is capable of doing. There is a specific, icy clarity that follows this revelation. It is not the heat of anger, but the cold of deep space. She looks at him, and she sees the puppet strings. She sees the calculation behind his eyes. The way he tilts his head when he listens is not a sign of empathy, but a calibrated gesture designed to elicit trust. The way he remembers her favorite flower is not romantic. It is dead entry. He is a machine wearing the skin of a man, and she has been powering him with her love, her trust, her very life force. The conversation will often continue after the words are spoken. He will not act as if anything has changed, because for him, nothing has. The mask slipped for a moment. He revealed a corner of the blueprint, and he assumes she is not intelligent enough, not perceptive enough, to have seen it. Or perhaps, on some level, he wants her to see it. Perhaps the control is no longer satisfying if the subject is completely unaware of its own captivity. So she sits there, in the lamplight or the restaurant buzz, a smile frozen on her face. She is a ghost in her own body. She is performing the role he expects of her. But inside, her mind is screaming, racing, tearing down the wallpaper to see the rot in the walls. She will nod at his points. She will laugh at his jokes. But every word from his mouth is now being processed by a new, terrifying filter. What does he really mean? What is his goal? What is the subtext? A simple question like, "What do you want for dinner?" becomes a labyrinth of potential manipulation. Is he testing her indecision? Is he setting up a situation where he can later criticize her choice? The ordinary becomes a minefield. The familiar becomes alien. This is the true purpose of the words. They are not meant to communicate. They are meant to rewire. They are a cognitive virus that hijacks her perception of reality and installs a new operating system, one of constant vigilance, of paranoia, of a profound and isolating loneliness. She is now alone in the relationship. She is the only one who knows the truth. To confront him is futile. He would deny it. He would gaslight her. He would tell her she's overreacting, being too sensitive, misunderstanding him. He would use the very intimacy they shared as a weapon, twisting her memories and her love into proof of her own instability. So she remains silent. She carries the knowledge like a radioactive secret, burning a hole in her soul. The world outside continues, blissfully unaware. Her friends ask how he is, and she says, fine. Her family invites them for holidays, and she makes excuses, her skin crawling at the thought of watching him perform the role of the perfect partner in front of her unsuspecting parents. She becomes an actress in a play that only she knows is a tragedy. The weight of the performance is exhausting. She finds herself studying other couples, wondering if their intimacy is also a lie. She looks at happy strangers on the street and feels a pang of something between pity and envy. Do they know? Are they, too, just one sentence away from the abyss? Time becomes distorted. There is the time before the words, and the time after. The before time is now remembered as a naive dream, a period of blissful ignorance she can never return to. It is tinged with the shame of having been so easily fooled. The after time is a grim, gray landscape where she must navigate the ruins of her old life while pretending they are still intact. She may try to rationalize it. Maybe I heard him wrong. Maybe he didn't mean it like that. But the seed of doubt has been planted in the most fertile soil imaginable, her own sense of truth. And it grows, a poisonous vine that slowly strangles her remaining trust, her peace, her very identity. The man, the source of this psychological cataclysm, often remains utterly unchanged. He goes to work. He mows the lawn. He talks about his dreams. He is a placid lake, while she is drowning in a stormy ocean beneath its surface. His normalcy is the final, cruelest twist. It makes her question her own sanity. If he is so normal, then the problem must be her. The terror he has unleashed is so internal, so invisible, that it has no witness but her. This isolation is a weapon. It makes her complicit in her own imprisonment. To speak of it is to risk being labeled crazy. To stay is to slowly go mad. Some women leave. The moment the words are spoken, something primal and survival-oriented clicks into place. They gather their things, they walk out, and they never look back. But the words follow them. They become a haunting. A new man's kindness is scrutinized for hidden barbs. A new partner's concern is examined for signs of curation. The words have immunized her against trust, and the side effect is a lifelong loneliness. Other women stay. They decide, consciously or not, that the devil they know is better than the terrifying unknown. They learn the rules of a new game. They become experts in managing his perception, in feeding his ego just enough to maintain the peace, in building a secret internal life he can never touch. They become ghosts in their own homes, their true selves locked away in a vault he cannot find. And then, there's the waiting, the dread of the next sentence. If he said it once, so calmly, so casually, he will say it again. The first words were the initiation. The next words will be the confirmation, the deepening of the terror. She finds herself bracing for it during every conversation, her body tense, her senses heightened, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Life becomes a state of perpetual anticipation of a psychological ambush. The sound of his key in the lock, the ping of his text message, once sources of comfort or excitement, now trigger a spike of adrenaline. He is no longer just a man. He is a bearer of existential truths, and every interaction is a potential delivery system. The specific words are unique, but their architecture is universal. They always reveal a fundamental truth a man has always known, but has carefully concealed. They always reframe the past and poison the future. They always isolate the woman, cutting her off from her own intuition before finally validating it in the most horrifying way possible. They are never about her flaws, but about his perception of her flaws as a utility. You're not being criticized for being emotional. Your emotion is being identified as a lever he can pull. You're not being accused of being distant. Your distance is being noted as a variable that needs correction. It is the difference between being in a conflict and being in a laboratory. This is the core of the silent, screaming fear that lives in the shadow of every woman's heart. It is not the fear of not being loved. It is the fear of being studied. It is the fear that the love she gives so freely is not being reciprocated, but is being collected, analyzed, and used. It is the fear that her heart is not a home for another, but a specimen in a jar. The words are the moment the label is written, in a handwriting she recognizes from love letters, describing her not as a person, but as a phenomenon. A fascinating, complicated, beautiful, but ultimately manageable phenomenon. And so, she lives inside the echo. The conversation ended. The lights were turned off. The world moved on. But for her, a new, darker world was born. A world where love is a strategy and intimacy is a tool. A world where the man sleeping next to her is a question mark wrapped in the skin of an answer. She will spend countless hours in the quiet of her own mind, replaying the moment, the exact cadence of his voice, the slight curve of his lips, the look in his eyes that was not love, but something else, something colder, more clinical, more final. She will search for a way to unhear it, to unknow what she now knows. But it is impossible. The veil has been torn away, and behind it is not a monster, which would be simple, but a void, a profound, impersonal emptiness where she thought a soul was. This is the true terror, not the presence of evil, but the absence of humanity. It is the fear that the words confirm, that in the place where a heart should be, there is only the quiet, relentless hum of a machine. And the most chilling part of all, he will probably never say anything like it again. The lesson has been delivered. The control has been established. The rest is just maintenance. He will go back to being the man she fell in love with, the perfect actor, leaving her alone in the audience of one, forever waiting for the play to end, knowing now that it never will, and that the only way out is to burn down the entire theater with herself still inside.